Hi everyone, first new review of the new year here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Eminem record, Music to Be Murdered By. Rap legend Eminem comes through with another surprise record. Music to Be Murdered By, this one. All I'm gonna say is that this obviously was not an album I was expecting. Had I been expecting it, I would not have been looking forward to it, mostly because it's no secret that M's last couple of records have been a little rough. Revival, a record so bad even his most devoted stans could not rationalize it, plus he still seems mad to this day over the reception it rightfully received. And how is Eminem going to progress to something better if he can't come to terms with why Revival got the response that it did? For sure, Kamikaze was slightly better, but only because it didn't go on forever like Revival did, and the best songs on here were kind of fueled by the anger that Eminem had over the reception of Revival. So all I really went into this record thinking is that maybe with some time to cool down and collect himself, plus with that really good MGK diss under his belt, maybe Eminem would provide a new direction, a new sound, a new something. I mean, the cover and title certainly made me wonder if he would be going back to more of his horrorcore roots on this one. Plus, the surprisingly good darkness made me curious as to how morbid or serious in tone this record would be too. So there are 20 tracks here, over an hour of material, a few Alfred Hitchcock vocal snippets in the mix to kind of reinforce this murder horror narrative that the record doesn't really follow through with when you get down to the themes and the concepts of all of the tracks here individually and whether or not they work together to create something greater. A bit of a confusing feature list on the album too, because after mocking this new generation of rappers on Kamikaze, I guess Eminem has no qualms with bringing young M.A. and the late Juice WRLD on here, who personally I think are both talented and worthy of a spot on any major artist's record. I'm not sure if Eminem would have felt that same way 2 years ago though, as now it looks like maybe he is trying to pick out some exceptions to the rule of his previously blanket statements, which ultimately I think is a good thing. If you're a major artist and you're not open or scrambling to having someone as talented and as versatile as Anderson .Paak on your record, you have lost the narrative. So in a way it does sound like Eminem is trying to give the kids what they want while balancing that with what some of his most hardcore fans want. Production from Dr. Dre, Royce da 5'9" features, every member of Slaughterhouse except Joe Budden on the last song, I Will. And of course, fast rapping. Gotta rap fast. There's plenty of edgy lyricism on the record too, which we will get into later. But still, I have to give Eminem credit on this one for not being so stuck in his ways, trying to keep his ear to the ground, especially on the production side of things, quite a bit of which is actually credited in part to Eminem, which was also the case on Kamikaze, but I think the beats this time around sound a lot better. It's cool to hear Eminem outside of his comfort zone a little bit with the simple, chimey trap beat and huge sub bass on Unaccommodating, even if that track is a little underwritten in comparison with some others here structurally. Also, the booming dusty drums and chipmunked vocal samples on You Gon' Learn are really good too. Plus the goofy synths and punchy drums on Godzilla or Little Engine have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek quality to them, which ever so slightly takes the edge off the dumber lines Eminem spits on these tracks, or at least makes the humor of them land a bit better. And then there's Darkness, which instrumentally is a bit of a less is more moment. Lots of quiet sound effects enhancing everything Eminem says on the track. Gentle trap drums, a slow moving piano passage, and a sharp interpolation of Simon & Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence. I know there are Eminem skeptics out there that will outright reject anything happening on this LP instrumentally because it is an Eminem album, but try to imagine some of the beats here working really well for other artists. The song Ya Ya is a cool mix of old and new, with its prominent Busta Rhymes vocal samples, heavy drums, out-of-pocket hi-hats, and buzzing synths. Honestly, it sounds like something Danny Brown would go insane over. Then there's the monstrous bass and microscopic drums on Marsh. Travis Scott could auto-croon over the psychedelic washes of effects and slightly delayed trap drums from Lock It Up all day. And the luscious combo of hip-hop and soul on In Too Deep to me sounds like something that could have landed on Kanye's past couple of records. Records. Though I know it might be hard to hear that past Eminem's annoying yelled vocal harmonies on the track, something I wish he would stop doing. Look, not every beat on this record is amazing. There are certainly a few head scratchers, like the Ace of Base ass instrumental on Farewell, which sounds like all that she wants to me. It just sounds like all that she wants. All that she wants is another baby. And also the muddy explosion of organ and diarrhea bass on Leaving Heaven. The chorus on that track really needed to go back to the drawing board. It really did. Not to mention, how many hooks with Skylar Grey are you going to do that sound exactly like this? So even though there are aspects of this album I like and I think are better than Kamikaze, better than Revival, I'm not saying this album is Eminem anew, because of course there are tracks here where he can't seem to give up his worst musical habits. There are songs on this thing where I am struggling not to hit the skip. Thankfully, I can only count these moments on one hand, whereas with Revival, it's like, ooh, yep. I'm counting my toes. We have those kind of nights where Eminem, I guess, is recounting a bunch of sexual encounters he's had while going out at the club, taking him back to his D12 days, which should have stayed back there, especially if you're gonna have Ed Sheeran do this lotiony ass hook. Oh my God, my whole iPod's filled with your songs, I mow my lawn to them. It's just a very tedious story with lots of references to getting high, bisexual women. Also, stunning bars like, I'm a candle, I'll go out if you're blowing me, and getting head in a bucket, Marshmallow. Also, can't say I'm all that big of a fan of Stepdad on this record either. I don't mind the anger or even the theme of this track. It's a grim story of violence and abuse whose tone is slightly off. For one, the progression and details of the story make me wonder how much of it is actually being embellished, because rarely do occurrences of abuse play out so cinematically. With this storyline setup and character establishment and development of violent climax. The most garish thing about the track, though, is easily the instrumental, which is like booming loud in your face, like this whole situation is really epic. And then there's the hook, I hate my stepdad. Again, this adds to the tone of a song about being abused, just feeling off. That and lines like, sneak up with a lethal injection and put him down like they did to my dog. I'm talking euthanasia, like kids in Taiwan. Call me crazy, but I just feel like being abused by a parent or guardian and rapping or singing about that does not beget that sort of lyric. The track Marsh not only sports one of the worst choruses on the entire record, but some of the worst lines stacked on top of each other too. I get dough like Ed Sheeran, so call me the gingerbread man. How could I hit a dry spell? I'm named after the wetlands. I look up to myself like a fucking headstand. Right now, I live in an igloo and I'm not chilling the fuck out. Toward the end of the LP, where Shady is feeling a bit more introspective, we get the song No Regrets, which is so boring and tedious it should be illegal. Another song where Marshall is kind of obsessed with not living up to the expectations of his fans who want him to be the old him. He then goes on to express regret over his previous attacks, focused on Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler, the Creator, though it is refreshing to hear Eminem in a place where he can acknowledge past transgressions like that. Much of everything else on this LP is either good or close enough, and then is kneecapped by 1, 2, or 3 really bad lines. Like at one point where he's rapping about other artists who are essentially students of his style, saying that it seems like the more they studied my music, the more they remind me of eyeballs. I'm watching my pupils get cornier, cornea. Though I guess at least M is willing to acknowledge that copycats of his style are really corny, and maybe you should take this as a hint from the God to stop. On this same track, Eminem also drops an Ariana Grande concert bombing line, which At this point, are we really even surprised? The probability of him rapping about this was about as high as him dropping a bar comparing a blowjob to blowing into a Nintendo cartridge, which he also does. And that's all just on this unaccommodating track. The following cut, You Gon' Learn with Royce da 5'9", has a lot better vibe, even if the first leg of Royce's verse is a bit of a lyrical miracle thing. I do like the smart declaration of the difference between segregation and separation toward the end of his verse, though. And lyrically, Eminem is kind of on fire here with the tape flip line, the water I walk on, Waterloo line, and the way that ties into the drip drop line. I thought that was smart. I also like the hard-hitting Godzilla. Eminem's flows on this thing fly like a professional boxer's fists. The juice hook is slick as hell, and even if Eminem does go a little overboard with the fast rapping in the last leg, to the point where he's filling the air with lines that just either don't make sense or sound silly. I'm unavoidable, I'm unavailable, I'm unatoilable, blah, 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 blah. At least he's self-aware enough to stop himself in the end and drop a bit of a reference to that joke that comedian Chris D'Elia made at him in that viral video where he's making fun of his rap style. You're using too many napkins, napkin, blampkin. He does put out a simile, though, where he compares himself with a liar's pants, saying he's on fire, though. It's a bit much. Once more, I am impressed with the attention to detail and the passion that goes into the track Darkness. The personal parallels that Eminem draws between himself and the shooter on that track I thought were really smart and kind of illustrates to the listener that this sort of thing is just one bad decision away for a lot of people who are suffering from mental health issues, drug issues. It seems really odd, though, that just a handful of tracks later, Eminem would write a really callous bar about that same Mandalay Bay shooting, but at this point, expecting Eminem to be consistently tasteful, you shouldn't hold your breath. And even though it's not my favorite in the track list here, I do still want to give props to Leaving Heaven, which not only gives a focused account of Eminem's come up through poverty and a bad family situation, but damn, he really hates his deadbeat dad. Completely going off on him in the final verse of the track, despite the fact that the man just died last year. Sometimes people who are in Eminem's situation will say, well, you know, he was good in this way or that way or extraneous factors, but no, Eminem like really wants him like to be dead and wants to hit him. The song Never Love Again is one of the many love songs in the track list here, but this one is actually just a metaphor for his long running addiction to pills. I love the verses and the instrumental on this track. I love how close he is able to get to the topic, but still keep the song and the lyricism footed and grounded in this theme of it being like a love, like a relationship. I like these elements of the track so much they kind of overcome just how stereotypically Eminem the hook is. The chorus is also mega weak on I Will, the track with Slaughterhouse, which was disappointing because you really should go all out on a track like this. And I think lyrically each person here does. Eminem does share one of his better verses on this track too, and the instrumental in general I don't mind either, but it's not the fireworks show I guess I was hoping for. Still, ending could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse, and I will say that generally about this record too. This record could have been a lot worse. Could have been a way worse album. Really could have. So while there are some stinkers in the track list here, there are some very Eminem spots. That's all I can say about them at this point. There are some spots where Eminem does still feel stuck in his ways. I do genuinely think that he put out some very good tracks here. He put together and wrote on some very good instrumentals. He had some good guests. While I don't love it, and there are spots where he does come off very bitter, like on the intro track, this is better than his last couple of LPs. Assuming you're not the type of person who is repulsed by literally anything Eminem does. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you should check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Eminem forever.